Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another or from one party to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. Politicians prospered, but the jobs left and the factories closed. The establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. Their victories have not been your victories. Their triumphs have not been your triumphs. And while they celebrated in our nation's capital, there was little to celebrate for struggling families all across our land. That all changes starting right here and right now, because this moment is your moment. It belongs to you. I will fight for you with every breath in my body, and I will never, ever let you down.
No, look, a lot of people are trying to take us down quickly. They're trying to discredit us. They're trying to say we don't know what we're talking about. Well, until you've been on the receiving end of it.
Called you actors.
Well, I am an actor, actually. I'm in Spring Awakening right now at the Barclay Performing Arts Center. It's a great show. Receiving end of.
Called you actors.
Well, I am an actor, actually.
Because a lot of times, by the time you go to court, it takes so long to go to court to get the due process procedures. I like taking the guns early, like in this crazy man's case that just took place in Florida. He had a lot of firearms. They saw everything. To go to court would have taken a long time. So you could do exactly what you're saying, but take the guns first, go through due process second.
We think about the tragedy in Sandy Hook, and
That's right.
we think about the tragedy in Sandy Hook, and
That's right.
we think about the tragedy in Sandy Hook.
That's right.
Today, Democratic Governor Jared Polis made good on a campaign promise, signing Democrats' red flag gun control legislation. It will allow a judge to declare somebody a danger and order their guns seized.
Sampling of surrenders under Florida's new Risk Protection Act.
We've taken in right around 200 firearms and about 30,000 rounds of ammunition.
The law, swiftly passed after the Parkland school shooting, temporarily strips gun owners of their gun rights and hardware if a judge deems them a threat to themselves or others.
Keep firearms out of the wrong people's hands.
Well, I am an actor, actually.
So this law funds U.S. propaganda against its own citizens. Now, before you object and say, wait, that can't be true because it's illegal for the U.S. to propagandize its own citizens, well, you were right. It was. Until 5 years ago. In 2013, that version of the National Defense Authorization Act removed a ban on U.S. government creating and then showing propaganda to U.S. citizens. That ban had been in place since 1948, and the 2013 amendment struck down a ban on domestic dissemination of material produced by the State Department and the Independent Broadcasting Board of Governors. See, it neutralized the Smith-Mundt Act of 1948 and the Foreign Relations Authorization Act of 1987, which have been passed to protect U.S. audiences from our own government's misinformation campaigns.
And please, could we do something with the assault weapons? We have to do something. We gotta take steps. I don't know what the answer is. Don, I don't know what the answers are. This isn't about wanting to take away everyone's guns. It's not an issue about we want to take everyone's guns. I have a gun. This isn't a Republican issue or a Democratic issue. It's not an issue about Republicans. It's not an issue about Democrats. This is an issue about humanity. This is an issue about humanity. And the worst thing we can do is for good men to do nothing. But what I do know is the worst thing we can do is for good men to do nothing.
And when we talk about rights, so we have the right for free speech. But if free speech in any way endangers someone, it gets restricted. It gets restricted.
Because my daughter has no voice. She was murdered last week and she was taken from us. And I'm pissed. Because my daughter I'm not going to see again. She's not here. She's not here. She's in North Lauderdale at whatever it is, King David Cemetery. That's where I go to see my kid. I'm very angry that this happened because it keeps happening. 9/11 happened once and they fixed everything. How many schools, how many children have to get shot? It stops here with this administration and me. I'm not gonna sleep until it's fixed. And Mr. President, we're gonna fix it. Because I'm gonna fix it. I'm not gonna rest.
What we're asking for is mental health services in our communities.
It is a mental health issue.
But people have to remember, however, that there is a mental illness problem that has to be dealt with. It's not the gun that pulls the trigger. It's the person holding the gun. Years ago, many cities and states, I remember it so well, closed mental institutions for budgetary reasons. They let those people out onto the street. You probably have your examples up here. I can tell you in New York, they closed so many of them, and they let really seriously mentally ill people out on the streets. And you see plenty of them today, even today. We're going to have to give major consideration to building new facilities for those in need. We have to do it. And at the same time, we will be taking mentally deranged and dangerous people off of the streets so we won't have to worry so much about that. A big problem.
As I have gotten older, I have decided we really need camps for adults.
In the 2 decades since Columbine, our nation has watched with rising horror and dread as one mass shooting has followed another, over and over again, decade after decade. We can and will stop this evil contagion. First, we must do a better job of identifying and acting on early warning signs. I am directing the Department of Justice to work in partnership with local, state, and federal agencies, as well as social media companies, to develop tools that can detect mass shooters before they strike. We are outraged and sickened by this monstrous evil, the cruelty, the hatred, the malice, the bloodshed, and the terror. And we vow to act with urgent resolve. We must recognize that the internet has provided a dangerous avenue to radicalize disturbed minds and perform demented acts. We must shine light on the dark recesses of the internet and stop mass murders before they start. As an example, the monster in the Parkland High School in Florida had many red flags against him, and yet nobody took decisive action. Nobody did anything. Why not? We must reform our mental health laws to better identify mentally disturbed individuals who may commit acts of violence and make sure those people not only get treatment, but when necessary, involuntary confinement. Involuntary confinement. Mental illness and hatred pulls the trigger, not the gun. And at the same time, we will be taking mentally deranged and dangerous people off of the streets, so we won't have to worry so much about that.
Martin Niemöller was a German clergyman, a Protestant, who watched Hitler's rise to power as though he were a member of the audience. In 1944, as a prisoner in the Nazi death camp at Dachau, he wrote the following. In Germany, they came first for the communists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Catholics, and I didn't speak up because I was a Protestant. Then they came for me, and by that time, nobody was left to speak up.
You guys know what this represents?
Well,
Maybe it's the calm before the storm.
what's the storming?
Could be the calm before the storm.
What storm is
We have the world's great military people in this room, I will tell you that. And we're going to have a great evening. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
What storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out. You'll find out.
We're never going to say in advance what the president's going to do.
You'll find out.
The nation grinding to a halt. Schools closed. Businesses shut down. In some places, curfews in place.
Kids are not pleased, but that's okay.
Sad, because I'm going to miss all my friends.
The effects of the COVID-19 outbreak sweeping through all aspects of American life.
Creates a lot of hardship for people, but it's the right choice.
We're just going to stay open because this might be the last resort people have, and that's the reality of what we're dealing with right now.
Extreme times and extreme measures. The president issuing new national guidelines for the next 15 days.
We'd much rather be ahead of the curve than behind it, and that's what we are. Therefore, my administration is recommending that all Americans, including the young and healthy, work to engage in schooling from home when possible, avoid gathering in groups of more than 10 people, avoid discretionary travel, and avoid eating and drinking at bars, restaurants, and public food courts.
In some places, restrictions are more severe. 7 million people in San Francisco ordered to shelter in place for the next 3 weeks.
And that's why I did that. I made deals with the devil in order to get that done, because we had to improve our military. Deals with the devil.
I never met Donald Trump before he was elected. There was a thing during the election where he and I were at the same place, and I avoided him. Anyway, then he got elected, and so I went to see him in December. Then the second time I saw him was the March after that, so March 2017 in the White House. In both of those two meetings, he asked me if vaccines weren't a bad thing, because he was considering a commission to look into ill effects of vaccines. And
I'm also pleased to report today that a vaccine candidate has begun the phase 1 clinical trial. This is one of the fastest vaccine development launches in history, not even close. We're also racing to develop antiviral therapies and other treatments, and we've had some promising results, early results, but promising, to reduce the severity and the duration of the symptoms. And I have to say that our government is prepared to do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes, we're doing.
There will be the ability, particularly in rich countries, to open up if things are done well over the next few months. But for the world at large, normalcy only returns when we've largely vaccinated the entire global population.